Good morning from Moscow, everybody. It's not morning for everybody, I know, but anyway, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I can see many people joining, and that's great. I think most of the planet at the moment is focused on the what's going to be the results of US elections, but some of you are listening to me, and that's that's very good. Half an hour is not that much to report the results and challenges of Spoonbilled Sandpiper conservation in 20 years by big teams. So let me go straight to the point. But how can I? Wait a minute. I want to change my slide, but it doesn't work. Can you help me to change the slide? Hello.
It takes a little time.
Well, I pressed it 20 times now. It doesn't work. So I will wait until something will happen. Probably need some help from the organizers because the presentation is not moving. Sorry, guys. Hello.
Hello?
Hello. It doesn't work.
Can you close the presentation and then open it again?
Yeah, that's the reason why I wanted to start it to double check it before. But okay, so what I'm doing, I'm just switching everything off, right?
그냥 우리 쪽에서 올려주고 가는 것도 되지 않나? 그때 나가버리자.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I am trying to show my screen again.
Okay.
And it doesn't work. That's why I hate all these Zoom conferences, because nothing is working. Sorry. So what do we do?
Click the screen share button on the bottom, as we see before. Do you want me to just share your screen? Share the slideshow?
And can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
And can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. So should I do something or somebody else is doing something?
If you want to reshare the presentation, the PPT screen.
I'll share my screen. Wait a second. Oh my God, where are these buttons here?
Evgeny, do you want me to share the presentation on our side?
Well, it doesn't matter for me as far as it's not working like that. Because I'm doing everything which I was supposed to do, and it doesn't work. So you can share presentation from your side. But would I see it myself?
Okay, so you have clicked the green button down on the bottom, but it didn't work, right?
Well, I clicked everything as you explained me before, but it doesn't work.
Okay.
So at the moment, I can see my screen. Oh my God. Yeah, and I can see this black square saying National Institute. Does it work now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I put it full screen now. So we have been on this stage before. And now you can see my screen and I can move my slides, right?
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Evgeny.
Okay. So could I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So sorry, everybody. This machine is more clever than I. So my presentation today is going to be organized the following way. I am saying a few words about Spoon-billed Sandpiper as a flagship, introducing the work of S-based task force, then some news from the wintering grounds, Myanmar, Bangladesh, China, a few words about genetics, where we get with satellite tagging, habitat modeling, and then news from the breeding grounds, where we recently got the evidence of the new declines. And then I want to speculate a little bit and also to discuss and get your opinions about why Spoon-billed Sandpiper keep declining and what can we do about it. So the question was asked before, why to select just a single species story for a plenary talk of important conference? And I think there are several reasons for that. Spoon-billed Sandpiper is, with all this 20 years of what was happening, is clear the flagship for the Flyway, and for species conservation we need flagships. With Spoon-billed Sandpiper it mirrors stories of many other species and conservation issues in Asia, so it's a good example to go deep and analyze to learn lessons for the other species. I think it's giving a good example of international cooperation across the borders within Asia, but also with the whole of the world, with many other countries and experts and organizations who are coming from different parts of the world to help spoonie conservation. Overall, big questions for us conservationists. If we can save such a charismatic special species from extinction, what is our conservation rhetoric is about? What are we speaking about? I hope we can do it. Otherwise, it's a very, very bad signal for all of us. And this is science conference. For last not least, we hope that we can present some reasonable examples of how conservation research could contribute to conservation and make it work. We are at the moment in the situation with Spoon-billed Sandpiper conservation when we honestly do not fully understand what are the reasons for the new declines. And I think we need to have some brainstorming. We need your contribution, your input. So overall, I think it's quite a good opportunity for us to present spoonie subject, and for it was worth selecting for the plenary of the big conference. So most of you know what Spoonie is about, but just in case that somebody who are not fully aware, that's a small charismatic shorebird, which is migrating long distance, thousands of kilometers, endemic of East Asian flyway, declined 90% in recent decades, and identified as one of the most threatened living beings on the planet, and so on and so forth. Flagship species for conservation, and very charismatic bird. Coordination and supportive implementation of conservation activities on Spoonbilled Sandpiper on the Flyway are going in collaboration with many partners and led by the Spoonbilled Sandpiper Task Force. That's a body which is there for about 15 years already. And we have a regular update of what's happening about Spoonbilled Sandpiper conservation. This is our newsletter, which is published twice a year. Christoph Zockler, my co-author of this presentation, and SBS Task Force coordinator, he is an editor of this newsletter. So we welcome all of you to visit more often EFP website and to learn more SBS news there. Just to give a brief overview of conservation activities across the Flyway, a lot is happening. So that's, many of you may have seen this picture before, but this is giving an idea of how much activities are happening just within 1 year. And these numerous yellow small dots are indicating the different places where Spoonbilled Sandpiper was ever recorded in our database. I don't have too much time, so let me go straight to the wintering grounds, because wintering grounds are the place where it was supposed to have most of threats, most important, most serious threats for Spoonbilled Sandpiper conservation. And there are several very important wintering countries for Spoonbilled Sandpiper. I will say about several of them today. And Myanmar, which is that's probably the biggest numbers so far, is a very key country, and we have very good team there. On the screen you can see some results which happened in last years. All sorts of things are happening in Myanmar. Monitoring conservation activities, a great success in designation of protected areas at the key sites. And there is a Spoonbilled Sandpiper National Action Plan and SIPA plan, and a lot was happening for hunting mitigation and alternative livelihoods. And the lead of team is young and enthusiastic colleague Fiole. You can see him at the left bottom on the slide, and the 3 main locations in Myanmar. And I can speak much more about what's happening there, but I want to attract your attention to the figures which are unfortunately showing that the decline of Spoonbilled Sandpiper in the wintering grounds is still going on. These are data for more than 10 years, which are recently published in joint paper, and they're showing the decline is continuing in spite of all our conservation activities on the Flyway. Bangladesh is another very important country, and Siam was already presenting during this conference. He's very active and doing lots of very good research. He's leading the co-author of this presentation and leading the work on Spoonbilled Sandpiper in Bangladesh. On the map on the screen, you can see how much they're actually doing. It's a huge Ganges delta, and lots of sites are regularly visited, and the monitoring of Spoonbilled Sandpiper in Bangladesh is going very well. It's also not only monitoring and research, it's hunting mitigation, first of all, which was very efficient, equally to Myanmar. There are activities for the protected areas, and education and outreach. But I want to attract your attention to the table here, which is summarizing the amount of flagged birds in different sites along the flyway. And this number of flagged birds are high, and number of flagged birds are increasing. So we see this also as and interpret it as another indication of decline in spoon-billed sandpiper populations. So here you can see Siam on the right and his colleague Mohammed Faisal. There are two of them. They're doing a great job in Bangladesh, and long list of supporting and collaborative organizations for spoon-billed sandpiper conservation in Bangladesh. An example of successes and challenges they are having in the key locations. So you can see a lot is going in Bangladesh. Then China is of course a very, very key country for safeguarding spoon-billed sandpiper. Majority of key spring and open stopovers, molting sites, all very, very critical places are located in China. And there are many different players, many different enthusiasts of conservation of spoon-billed sandpiper. In China, you can see some of them here on the photo on the screen. But I should highlight that a very important event in recent years was creation of Spoon-billed Sandpiper Conservation Alliance, which was established several years ago by EFP Science Unit in Beijing Forest University, and Mango Conservation Foundation. And they have really bring the new level of coordination and cooperation of spoon-billed sandpiper conservation work in China, and become a very strong supporter of internationally of the Spoon-billed Sandpiper Task Force as well. So in January 2020, by the time when the COVID pandemic was already knocking the door, they still managed to make a very good count. Never ever so many sites have been counted in China for spoon-billed sandpiper. And this was supported by Mango Conservation Foundation. So we are very thankful to Lily Soon, you can see her on the screen here, for her constant support in all the activities which are happening in China. But we want to have a bigger picture. And it was, there is a very strong team based in the UK support group for spoon-billed sandpiper in RSB, led by Graham Buchanan. And they have been already once doing the analysis of satellite imageries for prediction of where can we hope to have more spoon-billed sandpiper from a habitat point of view. So on the left, you can see roughly what we know about spoon-billed sandpiper distribution from actual data collected in the last nearly 20 years. And on the right, you can see the modeling results, which actually are identifying a lot of new locations. Some locations in new countries, like Malaysia and Indonesia, where we're just opening our page of understanding of spoon-billed sandpiper. So in India as well, so at least 10 or 15 of those locations are worth visiting to check if there are any spoon-billed sandpiper there. So that may help us to better understand wintering distribution. But of course, we should consider that with 90% overall decline of the species, it's likely that many even still very good sites would be not occupied, because there are just not enough spoon-billed sandpipers to occupy all good sites. At least this is we're clearly having in the breeding grounds, and we expect this to happen in the wintering grounds. But it's worth checking anyway. And we are very thankful to Tom, the lead author of this presentation, and Graham and all the team which was working for these opportunities. So when you look in more detail, you actually understand that this modeling can help us to identify on a local scale potential habitat. So we have been recently visiting India and discussing how and where the colleagues in India who are very keen to contribute can go to check for spoon-billed sandpipers. We know that recently Spoonie was rediscovered in India, and I'm pretty sure that they are surely there, but just a question of going and looking in the right place in the right moment. So here you can see an example that if you can enlarge the slide, and for example, the Krishna River Delta in the state of Andhra Pradesh, the area which was never really discussed before as potential spoon-billed sandpiper place, you can see good potential there. So due to this modern technology, we can have better opportunity to study spoon-billed sandpiper distribution. Satellite tagging. Satellite tagging in China and Russia was going on for many years now. We were using smallest in the world, small tag, 1.7 gram. And 16 birds were tagged, and we learned a lot from them. Actually, the key discoveries were new important locations within Russia, particularly East Sakhalin and Bay of Tik, very remote place where we're still struggling to come to visit in autumn. The new country was added on the list, Indonesia, and North Korea. Probably this is the most important discovery, that North Korea is actually having the important and long stopover in autumn, which is most likely molting place. So we learned a lot with satellite tagging, and you have heard a presentation of Nigel already during this meeting, where he was explaining much more in detail how many great benefits you can get with satellite tagging. Even in such a small, tiny bird like spoon-billed sandpiper, who can imagine only 5-10 years ago that we can actually put satellite tags on spoonies. And I use a chance to thank UK SBS support group, especially Nigel, Rees, Bas Hughes, and whole of WWTE in Western and others for their contribution. Actually, if not them, this satellite tagging will never happen. Now going to Chukotka, to the breeding grounds, where a lot of various activities are happening. So very brief introduction to the habitat. This is how breeding locations of spoon-billed sandpiper look like in June, in spring, early summer. It's a very restricted habitat, just several kilometers along the coast. Many of you have been there already, and many of others I hope will come and be able to join the conservation work in the breeding ground, helping in spoonie conservation. You're welcome. And we have a base there. Birds Russia, which is running this project, is working there for nearly 20 years. This is a main source of knowledge for spoon-billed sandpiper in the breeding grounds, and small village, very remote one. And the activities which are happening in Chukotka, again, it's a long list. It's a long-term monitoring. It's ecological research of various sorts. I will speak about several of them just in a minute. Ringing, individual marking, genetic studies, site protection, education, awareness raising, and very importantly, head starting, which is a new word in new approach in shorebird conservation, which has proved to be a very, very efficient tool. Just a brief in one slide summarizing what genomic studies have helped us to understand, led by the team of Professor Ferdinand Kondrashov, who's based in Austria currently. This study was studied when he was still based in Barcelona in another genetic lab. So they made analysis of genomes of spoonies and very close species redneck stains and some other species for comparison, and their main conclusion is that the genetic biodiversity for spoonie is still okay. So if the species will continue declining much, it is going to be not very good soon. But at the moment, and this is paper in Nature, Ecology and Evolution, is going to be published hopefully early next year. It's just saying, giving us example, giving us explanations that we still have a chance, because this is one of the big questions. With such a decline, are there still a chance to save Spoonbilled Sandpiper actually from genetic point of view? And the answer is yes, there is a chance. Among the threats which are identified for Spoonbilled Sandpiper, the key threats, which were reasons for main reasons for the declines, was predation in the breeding grounds was one of the main ones. So to better understand the level of predation in the breeding grounds, 8 years ago we started the study with cameras, with nest recording cameras, and of course we're not putting them on the few remaining Spoonbilled Sandpiper nests, but we're using other species of shorebirds and some other birds nearby. And we already have a reasonable sample of more than 130 nests, and which had shown the diversity of predators. Actually, it's all sorts of species which are eating nests of waders. And those waders are breeding in the same habitat, in the same areas, in the nearest vicinities of Spoonbilled Sandpiper nests. So there's no doubt that this study is giving good enough picture for evaluation of Spoonbilled Sandpiper predation. And predation is quite high. You can see only in a nest stage, it's 33 to 58%. And the pictures which are given here are the pictures from those automatic cameras. So quality is not perfect, but this is what we can get with this Bushnell technology. But some of those pictures are really, really impressive. Fightings with thrillers, with fighting with ground squirrels next to the nests, and all the diversity of predators. Among them, the raven is actually very, very bad one. Actually, the numbers of ravens in vicinity of Minor Pilgrim are probably 5 times higher than naturally, due to the opportunities which they get with humans. Humans have built a construction they can breed on. They're giving them year-round feeding opportunities with the rubbish dumps, and particularly great opportunities for feeding on fish remains in summertime during the breeding period. But unfortunately, they not only focus on rubbish dumps and fish, they also do take nests, and they're one of the smartest nest predators. And overall, if we take together Spoonbilled Sandpiper loses due to predation, it actually can be up to 75–90% if you consider all the young up to the stage of fledging, which is much more difficult to give in exact figures, because evaluation of predation of fledglings is more difficult to estimate. But anyway, trapping and ringing, which is happening in Minor Pilgrim, and you can see the main actors here, the co-authors of my presentation, Pavel and Yegor. That's a very important activity. And during last 20 years, nearly 1,000 Spoonbilled Sandpipers were landed in the breeding grounds. But particularly interesting results we start getting when we learn, and we were encouraged by Nigel Clark to use engraved rings. We were using individual marking before. Pavel was doing it with just different flags, but actually with engraved rings. And we are happy, well, we are very thankful to Nigel for providing all these rings on a regular basis. So we can learn much, much more. And it's more than 400 birds already individually marked. And using this individually marking data, we have learned a lot about the biologies of the species, the migration routes, survival, how site faithful the birds are, which age do they breed, and annual return. You can return rate. You can see all these figures on the screen here. And most importantly, we were able to get opportunity to evaluate head starting with individual marked birds, because all head started birds are individually marked. But let me first give a short introduction about what head starting is. Again, many of you have heard it before, but for those who haven't, years ago, Professor Rhys Green from Cambridge, he made a model which was, which you can see, simple presentation of this prediction on this screen, that if we start head starting, and if we address hunting issues in the wintering grounds, we can get very different pictures. So actually, we have a real opportunity to reverse a trend and having a Spoon-billed Sandpiper increasing, which we were actually having until 2 years ago in Minor Pilgina. I'm going to speak about it just in a minute. Head starting is an instrument to support numbers, at least in the key breeding location, where in Minor Pilgina we are using head starting as an instrument to help increase the numbers. The breeding productivity in the wild is very low, 0.6 fledgling per pair, and you can make it at least 4 times higher with head starting. Again, for those of you who haven't seen how does it work, it's actually very simple. Theoretically very simple. Actually, in practice, it's a lot of hard and complicated work. You collect the eggs, you incubate them, then you rear the birds indoors, and then outdoors in the big aviary, and then release the birds. It's a huge work of team of at least 6 people working at the same time in the field about this. And we learned a lot from our colleagues in WWT, and this project was greatly supported by RSPB for many, many years. And it does work, actually. We're not sure it's going to work at all, but it does work. And you can see that in all these years, we have released about 200 birds, and we have about, well, exactly 20 different individuals which are returning to the breeding grounds to breed. And we already have the 2nd generation of birds, chicks of head-started birds which start breeding. And head-started birds have seen all over the flyway, in most of countries for 700 or so times. 26% of them have seen at least once, and about 10% of them returning to Minor Pilgina. But we also hope that some of them are returning to the bigger area, as you do not expect all the individual birds to come to the same place where they have been born. It should be, and it is dispersal, and there should be dispersals. So hopefully we actually think that there are more head-started birds which are returning to the breeding grounds than 10%. But even 10% is comparable to the wild bird returns, so it is good. Just slightly slower, but not too much. But the main message, and this is very sad message actually, which we're having in Minor Pilgina at the moment, is that we suddenly 2 years ago something has happened, and we're now having decline for a 2nd year. So on this graph you have seen that the species was declining, declining, and then when a lot of conservation activities on the flyway had started in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, all these hunting mitigations in Myanmar and Bangladesh I've been speaking about, and the habitat conservation in China, then the situation has stabilized in Minor Pilgina. It's kind of indicator what's overall happening to population. And then head started was starting, and after long work, we were start congratulating each other, and we were ready to start celebrating in 2018, saying, okay, we have reversed the trend. It's now going to increase. And then for 2nd year in a go, we're having a decline, and we are trying now to understand why. And this is what I'm going to share with you, some of our thoughts with why this is happening. So when we analyze the dynamics of returning Spoon-billed Sandpiper to Minor Pilgina, and this could be only done due to the individual marking I was speaking about, you can see on this graph that actually the survival, the return of adult birds who are very site faithful. So you presume that the majority of them are coming to those places where they were breeding. It's kind of similar, but the return of young birds is much worse. So for both wild and head-started. If it will be only head-started birds which will be returning not as good, we can always argue that something wrong is happening to the head-started chicks. But as far as its comparable decline of return of youngs in both wild birds and head-started, it makes us thinking that something happening with the survival of those birds outside of the breeding grounds, because in our release, in our head-started release, it's all happening similar like it was happening before. So this picture is presenting the contribution of head starting. Well, head starting is adding about 40% roughly to what was happening there. So when you look at the graph, you see the green color is the number of wild adult birds who were marked as adults. And you can see that the trend is actually overall also a little bit negative. So let's remind us the graphs which I've seen from the wintering grounds. So the number of wild adult birds in Minor Pilgina were a little bit declining, but as far as we have been working hard on improving the conditions for breeding there with some control of predation and some various other conservation efforts, plus head-started chicks. So you can see the blue color. This is what head starting is adding to recruitment of spoon-billed sandpipers and Minor Pilgina. So with this blue color, you can see that it was improving. So overall numbers of spoon-billed sandpiper in Minor Pilgina were increasing until 2 years ago. So overall, it's kind of proven that with head starting, you can increase local population. But if survival of young is good enough. So here we try to analyze the data on the head-started chicks and wild chicks, individually marked, trying to understand what's happening to them in different age. To do that, we needed to analyze, to involve all the data we have from the wintering grounds and from the non-breeding grounds where the individual marked birds were seen. So again, all this is only possible due to the use of individual marking. And just to make this long story short, the main conclusions which we got here is that it's most likely that it's within first 8 months when chicks are lost. So this is the picture which is illustrating, trying to us to help to understand what's why the young birds are declining. So we've our hypothesis that the decline in Minor Pilgina is happening because of low survival of young, both wild and head-started, and it looks like something happening to them within the first 8 months of their life, as later on their survival is much better. This is a science conference, so I'm not supposed to speak about various awareness raising and education, but the picture will be really incomplete if you don't not mention this. So in Minor Pilgina, there's a lot happening about working with the local population and decision makers about raising awareness about spoon-billed sandpiper. Now everybody in Chukotka knows about spoon-billed sandpiper. It's regularly on the TV, newspapers, and the governor know about it, and all the local citizens in Minor Pilgina. So that helps us to save the bird there and also encourage connecting people on the flyway. And another good progress which we are having is that creation of the nature park. It's going to be the biggest in Chukotka Nature Park, hopefully when it will be created, the land of the Spoon-billed Sandpiper. The work was going for more than 5 years, and now we are really very close to have the document signed by the local government. So Chukotka Conservation Department announced it may be created before the end of 2020 for all of us to celebrate. It's a huge, huge area where, again, Spoon-billed Sandpiper work as a flagship. So only probably several % of this territory are key Spoon-billed Sandpiper areas, but all the other regions are going to be protected because of flagship role of Spoon-billed Sandpiper, and that's a great biodiversity and landscape diversity there. So along with the established Myanmar Ramsar sites and the World Heritage site on the coast of China, this nature park is going to become a part of the chain of protected areas which are supposed to ensure survival of Spoon-billed Sandpiper. So that's a great plan, but we need to understand why they're declining. Otherwise, it may not help to have protected areas. So, looking at the watch, I can see that I'm actually overdone my time a lot. So, why declining again? It is not very clear, to be honest. There are several different hypotheses, and I'm going to speak. They are on the screen, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about them. So one measurable thing is that probably the temporary unfavorable conditions at key stopover in Taozini, Jiangsu, China, were the reason, because it was the unlucky combination of changes of natural conditions of the intertidal channels, plus changes of overgrowing of the former high tide routes with vegetation, and increasing pressure of tourists and photographers, lack of high tide routes, and so on and so forth. So, but this was recently addressed, and if this was the reason, we're going to see some good progress in the next year. We also learned about increasing intertidal acclimation in North Korea. We have a hypothesis to check about the possible weather changes in the spring above sea of Okhotsk, the big part of the Russian southern Far East, where we think the cyclonic system are changing a lot, which results actually in lower return of Spoon-billed Sandpiper to minor, to the breeding grounds. But the reason why we think it might be something to check is that in the last 2 years we've had not only spoonies coming in low numbers, but a number of other waders as well. And those waders are from different ends, like ring plover, which are wintering in the Arabic countries, and redneck stints, which are wintering in East Asian flyway. So the only reason why they all can come in lower numbers, if something happening with them above the sea of Okhotsk, where they have the last short stopover before they're coming to the breeding grounds. Then hunting issues. We of course have hunting issues in Kamchatka and Sakhalin in autumn, in Russian Far East, and we are gradually learning. Now we've heard the presentation during this conference about Kamchatka results. This year we have already Sakhalin results, which are actually even higher pressure of hunting than in Kamchatka. And that's mainly happening in autumn, so exactly by the time when spoonies are there. We also know that there is still some more hunting going in Vietnam, in the province of Guangxi in China, and probably in some unknown locations. So addressing hunting is actually still an issue, in spite of great successes in Vietnam, in Bangladesh and Myanmar. Climate change, wider scale events, something gradual which is happening somewhere in the flyway, we don't understand it. So we probably need to focus on it more, because climate change is here and changing our life every minute. So maybe the spoonies are influenced as well. Some strange shifts or differences in numbers of spoonies in Bangladesh which Siam had recorded. So could they be because of the climate change? Could that influence the survival? We don't know. Maybe there's something else toxic on the flyway, and maybe it's cumulative of all the stressors. So this we don't know, and we very much welcome all of you to also to think about it and to help to understand what's going on. So intertidal reclamation in DPRK, just not to be only speaking about it, we want to demonstrate it thanks to the German supporter of Spoon-billed Sandpiper, Milan Fang, with help of the Manfred Hansen Stiftung. They have summarized actually from the satellite images exact location and size of recent reclamation. About 8,000 hectares in last 3 years, and God knows maybe something else is happening. So all the dots you can see, these are satellite tracking results of individual records of spoonbilled sandpipers, and you can see that many of them were taking place in those areas which are reclaimed. And actually, these are only several birds. We're only speaking about 4 different individuals. So of course, if there are more birds, more of them have been influenced by those reclamation. This is probably the only remaining reclamation in the Yellow Sea area now, because we know that it's all stopped in China and South Korea. So what can we do about it? How we can reach out to North Korea government to explain that how badly it may influence actually spoonbilled sandpiper, not only actually these due to low reclamation rates, North Korea have probably one of the lowest proportion of intertidal areas so far reclaimed. But now if they will catch up, it actually may end not only spoonbilled sandpiper, but very bad influence on the other shorebirds and the other water birds as well. So can we use EFP as an instrument to try to reach out to North Korea? Can we use some other instruments? Can we consult with our colleagues in China? We know that China have great opportunities to communicate with North Korea on different levels, including governments as well. How can we help to stop these reclamations there? And it's very much in contradiction also with the strategy of having the World Heritage Site by 3 countries. But well, that's an important subject to speak. But I don't have time for it at the moment. Speaking about climate change, we know that in the Arctic, everything is warming very high, very strong. We know that the Bering sector of the circumpolar Arctic is one of the most warming locations. So I just put here the warming, the trend of ocean surface temperatures, like it was changing in recently comparing to the previous 30 years. And you can see red color everywhere. It means warming, warming, warming. So the good news for us is that actually the only small bit of coast where the warming is not happening or very little happening is along the Korek coast, where most of remaining spoonbilled sandpipers are. Not only because the more northern areas are influenced. And of course, ocean surface is indirect indirect connection to the tundra vegetation, but we strongly believe that these small bits of tundra along the Korek coast where spoonies are breeding in Minor Pilgrim and nearby are very much influenced by seawater temperatures. So for the moment, it doesn't look too bad. It's not warming or warming very little, but how long would it stay cool? How much time climate change is giving us until the best habitat may be overgrown by bushes. And if it's grown by bushes, that's the end of the story. Spoonies can breed there. So it's an indication that we need to study climate change. It's more or less clear what we need to study in the breeding grounds, but I'm pretty sure we need to understand what we should study in the non-breeding grounds, which may influence spoonbilled sandpiper and actually other shorebirds as well. So I did mention about this local Taozini story, which was possibly one of the reasons for the temporary decline, at least in Minor Pilgrim. And here I want to report, we recently learned from GFA and MCF, the colleagues who have been working there very intensively in spite of all the COVID restrictions. It was very hard in summer 2020 to ensure. You can see this small red square in the middle of Taozini on the map. This is showing the new high tide roosts, which is birds exceptionally well reacted. You have all sorts of birds there, so it was very right decision of our Chinese colleagues to create this high tide roost there close to the feeding areas, which is now well protected. Also to control the activities of photographers and tourists on the mudflats, which disturb birds when feeding. And we know that there are new monitoring going on and research on feeding ecologies. So congratulations to our Chinese colleagues and many thanks. Just being ready to finish, I want to show this species conservation curve, RSPB species conservation curve, which is giving the picture of how the ideal recovery of the species should be going on, which has started with the diagnosis, solution testing, deployment of solutions, and then sustainable management. So if you put this curve to the concrete Spoon-billed Sandpiper case, in the early 2000 years, we have a diagnosis and searching for solutions. Then the solutions were coming with the hunting mitigation and head starting, and then we were deploying them actively. And our hope that the curve will go up for sustainable management, but at the moment, I'm afraid that the curve may start going down. So this curve may look slightly different for different species. Hopefully it will start rising again. So thank you very much for your attention.